Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining A Fistful of Meeples. A Fistful of Meeples is a 2 to 4 player game that should last for approximately 30 minutes, depending on, of course, how much thinking all of your players are doing. This is one of those games that looks relatively simple, and let's be honest, it actually is, but when you're taking your turn, there's a lot of thinking that will need to go on. Because all you're doing is you're taking all of the meeples out of one of the rooms or buildings that's around this street, and you're placing them one at a time outside each building. So going for the building that has the most meeples is going to give you the most amount of stuff to do. But that's not always helpful because of various different things. Because what's happening, the color of the meeple that you have dropped on a spot tells you what you're going to do. And so a lot of the colors that you drop down respond to the number of a different color that's in the building. For example, police, which are the blue ones, or the deputies, of course it's a Western game, the deputies, when they're placed down, are going to gain pieces from the bag. So we're looking golden stone, little cubes that come out of the bag. So they're going to gain pieces from the bag for each robber that is in the room or building that they are standing outside of. If there's none of them in there, they're getting nothing. Whereas the robbers, they do the same thing, but with each of the builders, which are the brown guys that happen to be in that building. If there's none there, they get nothing as well. The builders, however, have certain combinations of gold and stone that are required for each of the buildings to be built, or for a marquee to be placed onto each of those buildings for that personal player. Once you've placed that up there, so once you've spent the stone or the gold or the combination, that has been built and it's now your building. And this is where the game gets a little bit tricky, because anyone who goes to that building, if they are brown, so a builder, or gold, so a miner, is going to give you the ability to build again. So that means flip the marquee label over and you're doubling the score and you're doubling what your miners can do. Or a miner is going to be able to take either 2 or 4, depending which side of the marquee the building he's actually on. The person who owns the marquee will take the pieces, even if it's someone else's turn. And this is where you start getting into a little bit of dramas with the thinking of, oh, I don't want to put a gold guy in front of that marquee because the other player is going to be able to get benefit from that. I don't want to give them benefit. Or, okay, I could put a builder there, which means they could build, but I can see their resources, they don't have enough stuff to be able to build with. And so it's not a real bad situation to actually do that. There's a lot of that level of thinking, kind of, this. There's only 4 different colored guys, but each of them responds slightly differently to the building that's in front of them. Sometimes you'll be putting guys down just to get to a certain location with a certain color, because that's going to give you ultra points. There's also this idea of a jail and a saloon, and the madame who's in the saloon will come out and she will give one piece out of the mining bag to each of the brown guys that's in the building that she stopped on. So if there's a room that has a heap of those guys in it, it's actually probably worthwhile getting her onto that. There's a jail, so whenever the deputy stops on a spot and gets the cubes out of the bag for the red guys, the robbers, the thieves, they get sent to the jail as well. So there's going to be a point where a whole bunch of red is in the jail. And so when it comes to your turn, you can take all the red out of the jail and, starting anywhere you like, start putting those red guys around. The other thing when you release the red guys from jail is that you can put a red cube into the bag. The red cube in the bag, if that gets drawn out, that explodes half of the stone at the table. It's not just the player who pulled it out, but everyone. And so there's this real push and pull of I've got all this stuff, but something else could happen, or I want to do this, but I don't want to give them this other stuff. And that level of thinking is actually what can slow this game down far more dramatically than it needs to. I fear that playing this game, it feels like there should be something else going on. I know that sounds like there's a lot going on already. I get it. I understand. But the actual playing of it is actually quite simple and quite straightforward. It just feels like there should be something else happening. Like it almost moves through too quickly is probably the best way to state it. So what I found, I had a 4-player game of it the other night, and there's only 6 of those gold bricks out. I found 4 of them went on one round of the table because everyone's happened to be pulling a whole bunch of gold, because you're trading your gold pieces in for a brick, and the first person to take one of those bricks, it's only going to be 6 gold pieces. The second person, same, but then the third person has to pay 7, and it gradually gets more and more. But I found that 4 of them went really quickly, and then a few rounds later, the same thing, brick, 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 because we were just pulling a whole bunch of gold out of the bag. And I don't know, it didn't feel like I'd come to a satisfactory end playing that way. Like, I understand the necessity for it, but having that as the final thing that happens in the game, it's one of 3, but the way that I play, the way that the people around me play, we tend to go after those gold bricks and do that stuff rather than the fighting stuff. So the game can finish once there's been 6 jewels. We only had maybe 1 or 2 of those jewels. The game can finish when all 3 of the dynamite pieces have been put into the bag and then drawn out of the bag. We only released the robbers from the prison once, and so there's only 1 of those pieces floating around. It may just be the way I play, it may just be the people I have surrounded myself with, but I found that we tend to keep after one way of play, and that one way of play actually goes through really quickly compared to the other 2 ways of play. There's a real, which way should I go on that? The look of the game on the table is fine, there's nothing wrong with it. There's just some meeples and some dice and a little board, and that's probably right for a small game. Now, might I say, publishers of games. Notice how that is really struggling to come off. It's been a real struggle. Once again, I'm coming to real fine detail stuff, but it feels like this was not taken into account when the box was made, and so there's like a tiny little bit difference. It's just a little bit too tight. It's actually quite hard to get into the box. It's one of those things that should just be a standard, we go for this box size, but it's not. We need to think through this stuff. And I'm not 100% convinced that everyone thinks through the stuff that's necessary to make a game playable and really easily got into. Look, that's a real fine detail gripe. I've actually really enjoyed playing the game, the couple of games I've had of it. I played a 2-player. I felt there was a needed more. Like, you can play it 2, but it feels like it probably needs more players to push into other areas. I played the 4-player, and that had played fine. I haven't played it 3-player. I actually wonder if this game sings at 3 players, because the 2-player, you're not going to have too many of the shootouts, whereas 3-player, I think there's a higher chance of that happening, simply because once one end has been taken for the shootout, anyone can go past there without having to actually go into a shootout. And so having 3 players, there's a higher chance that someone will do something at the other end to give you an opponent, someone to shoot out against. The bricks, I found, went too quickly. It might just be that they're a little bit too cheap. I don't know what the balancing is on that thought process to kind of push us towards, this is really a shootout game. It's not really a get as much gold as you can game. I'm not sure on where they actually landed with that, or if I don't know. It just feels like that's a little bit of a kind of just it moves the game through too quickly, and it just kind of happens. There's not really a whole bunch that can be done about it, but it feels like the game was built to be a shootout game, and this is just a happenstance of this is the extra stuff, but the extra stuff has become the game. As I say, it might just be me and the people I hang out with and play games with, where we tend to not go for the shootout options because we like each other. We're not fighty gamers, we are Euro gamers, we much prefer to just do the stuff. Which reminds me, rolling dice to work out who has won. I understand it, I get it, I fear that it's a cheap option on this game. Oh, okay, you're shooting out against you guys roll the dice, whoever's the stronger of the types of meeple, so if it's a gold meeple against a brown one, the stronger, which is the gold, would get to roll again. Well, it's okay, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it still feels a bit, it's a bit haphazard. I don't know of a better solution on that, but it just feels a bit haphazard. So anyway, look, I will leave it there. If you have not come across A Fistful of Meeples before, please go ahead and watch my Gamesplanation to get a feel for what the game is, how it plays, and if it's a game that would actually work for you and your groups and would sing for you. I will leave it there. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.